This podcast is sponsored by the Fireman Moving Company. The Fireman Moving Company is the official moving company of WKU Athletics. Not only can they be trusted to move all the coaches in and out of Western, but they can move you anywhere nationwide. The Fireman Moving Company is owned and operated by firemen and is founded by WKU alumni. If you are looking to move sometime soon, give them a call at 270-791-1755 and get yourself a free quote. Welcome to Topper Talk, your number one Western Kentucky athletics podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Moffitt, and I'm joined by co-host Tyler Bailey. Hilltopper Nation, whether it's happening on the hill or on the road, grab those red towels, stand up and cheer, because it's up next on Topper Talk. All right, welcome back, and thank you for downloading and listening to another episode of the Topper Talk podcast, your number one source for WKU sports news and information. We are the only year-round WKU podcast and the only WKU podcast that covers every single sport and athlete at Western Kentucky University. We are also a proud member of the College Huddle podcast community. And make sure you're following us on all of our social media platforms. As always, I would emphasize to follow us on X or Twitter, whatever you're calling it. But that's where you're going to get the most up-to-date feed on relevant news and information as it happens, as it pertains to Western Kentucky. And always head over to our YouTube channel at Topper Talk Podcast. Give us a subscription over there. Hit that bell, get notified anytime a new episode is added each and every single week with our audio version. And I've got Tyler here with me, man. We've got I guess you could call it a rough basketball episode to dive into, man. You ready to get into it?
I don't think I'm ever ready to talk about a rough basketball episode, but yeah, I guess we might as well jump into it.
But before we get into the basketball specific episode, recapping a couple games and previewing a couple games, we have to get caught up with our Red Towel wrap up, which catches us up with all the news and information we've missed since we last recorded. So, Tyler, hit us with that Red Towel wrap up.
All right, so starting it off, WKU basketball lost to Liberty 76-69 and to Sam Houston 73-58.
Yeah, so a couple disappointing losses for the men's basketball team, and obviously we can talk about those a little bit. The Liberty game, that game was just brutal. We knew coming in, they were coming to Diddle Arena. They're, the best team in conference, as their record shows, undefeated in conference play coming in, and they're still undefeated in conference play at this moment as we record. Best record in the league. They were the preseason favorite in the league. And they're just a solid team. They're a really good shooting team. Several of those guys have played together for multiple years, and we knew we were going to have to play our best game to have a chance to win that game. And what do? We turn around and start the game off by getting down 21-2, I believe it was at one point. I don't remember exactly, but it was a large margin to open the game. Seemed like Plona burned a couple timeouts real quick and early. Ended up subbing out all 5 starters pretty early into the game, just trying to find a spark. We came back. We made a nice run of our own. We came back. We took the lead for a little bit. Then the second half, again, Liberty they did what they do. They pulled away. We had a chance in the closing seconds to tie the game. A bucket was called off because of a illegal screen. So we've not been on the good side of illegal screens in Diddle Arena a couple of times this season, but we end up losing to a really good Liberty team. And then the Sam Houston game, it was a completely different game. The news came out that Armello Boone and Tegan Moore would be out for that game due to injuries. And when your top 2 scorers are out, on the road where you already struggle, we had a feeling that game could be ugly, and it was. I mean, we just basically got beat down that whole game. Never really were in contention for that game. End up losing by 15. So, couple rough losses, and quite frankly, the road doesn't get any easier as we look forward to the games that we preview this week with Kennesaw State and MTSU. So, couple rough games. Tyler, what were your thoughts on the 2 losses last week?
Yeah, I mean, with Liberty, they are artful at passing the ball. I mean, that's something they're good at. That ball can reverse. That ball can flip inside of the court just in a in an instant. And the team shot 59% from three, 17 to 29. I mean, they shot 21 to 45 from the field goal and free throw line. They were 71%, 17 of 24. Um, the team is good. That's the reason why they're undefeated for a reason. I felt like we gave ourselves a chance. We had a spark when Leroy came in. I feel like Leroy gave us that spark with that block, and then he got a few buckets down there. Uh, Leroy,
Foreshadowing.
yeah, maybe a little bit. So Leroy came in there 4 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 block. Uh, I mean, he gave you 21 minutes, even though he did give you 2 points. It was still that intangibles that he came in, he got the team fired up. Um, and then of course with that dead ball technical that Cleveland, and I understand why Cleveland was mad. He was very pedestrian that game. He played 30 minutes, only got 3 points, 5 rebounds. He had 3 turnovers. He got 2 steals and 2 blocks, but for someone who's supposedly supposed to be, great, he was a very pedestrian basketball player that night. But the rest of his team was there to really pick him up, or at least the rest of the starting five. Caden Matheny, I can't wait till he graduates. Harper and Porter, I feel like they've been there 7 years. But I feel like even though we got down such a big hole, we fought our way back, and we actually gave ourselves a chance to win the game there at the end. It was just, to me, seemed like poor shot selection. And that's something that happens. But I feel like we can come back. I feel like we could have used that game to get better and to propel ourselves to the Sam Houston game. The wheels fell off. You're right. The news broke that Boone and Moore was not going to be able to play, and I felt like the team was defeated. Or that's the way they looked. It looked like they had no pep in their step, and the score reflected that. I mean, what I think in the second quarter, at one point we had like 48 total points. So we scored 21 in the first, 37 in the second. You're just not going to help yourself doing that. Now, shooting wise, we shot 35% from the threes. Granted, we shot 8 of 23, 37% from the field, and 75% from the free throw line. They shot 49 from the field, 35 from 3-point, and 40% from the free throw line. They shot abysmal. Just Po Boy King kept them in that game, kept the foot on the gas, and Illick. I'm guessing that's how you say his name. He had 12 points. Po Boy had 27. If you and I don't know. I don't know. Po Boy was 4-6 from the threes, 10 of 16 from the field. I mean, you got to find some way to lock him down, or at least try to contain him. And it just never came. It just never happened. That game was very deflating. So you're right. The road don't get any easier. I wish it kind of did for a game or two, but I mean, I feel like it's just going to be an uphill battle, and the team has got to find a way to come together, batten down the hatches, and get ready for war. Because if people are going to be out, and I don't know if that's what's going to happen. If Moore and Boone's going to be back for Wednesday, Saturday game, I hope they are. They may not be. You got to find a way to come ready to play, and you got to find someone who's going to step up and be the leader of the team. Hang on just a second. Lost my spot. Lady Toppers basketball lost to Liberty 53-55 and lost to Delaware 55-66.
Yeah, the rough season continues for the Lady Topper basketball team as well. Liberty, one of the better teams in conference, they were right there with them, blow for blow. I think they even had the lead after 3 quarters, had a chance to win that game. Liberty made a shot, I think, with 8 seconds left and end up stealing that victory. And then Delaware also playing very good basketball at this point in the season, put them away with a pretty convincing 11-point victory. So Just trying to figure out what works with this roster with the Lady Toppers. It just has been an inconsistent up and down year. Um, I'm not one to sit here and call for a coach's head. I know there's some NIL opportunities coming up in the future that may help future recruiting. So, I hope Greg Collins is here to take advantage of that in the future for the women's basketball team. He's been here for, 7, 8 years, I think it is now. I was here under Coach Hurd when she was here. So, good man, good coach, but at the end of the day, he's got to win some more ball games to keep that job and secure that job for the future. So hopefully they get it figured out and turned around before the season ends.
Paige Briggs Romine had a career high of 22 kills versus San Diego.
Yeah, Pro Tops volleyball news. I love that version of it as the pro volleyball season has started since the collegiate season is over. And love to see Paige Briggs getting an opportunity. She's bounced around on, been on 2 or 3 teams now and hasn't always had the biggest opportunity to make, a name for herself. And we know what kind of collegiate career she had. She was an All American here at Western Kentucky and is a really good player, and glad she's getting an opportunity to show that now in the professional volleyball league. And, 22 kills is no surprise from us. And we've seen her do that on multiple occasions. So definitely big congratulations to Paige Briggs.
Well, if you thought you had one pro top volleyball, wait, because we got a second one. Kylie Cox had 13 kills and was player of the game in a victory over Orlando.
Yeah, also pretty awesome news again, doubling up on the Pro Tops volleyball. Kaylee Cox, having a good game again. No surprise to us. Was a conference player of the year. Was honorable mention All American. I mean, she's just gonna have a good career. She's a tall outside hitter, and just really solid, overall as a volleyball player. So very excited for her getting a chance with the Dallas Pulse team and had a really good game and named player of the game. So congratulations to Kaylee.
Some more volleyball news. Kyle Cohen returns to WKU volleyball as an assistant coach, replacing the position vacated by Jenna Otek, going to University of Louisville.
Yeah, obviously we hate to lose Jenna Otek, but can't blame her for going to a program that's as prestigious as Louisville. Kind of crazy how good of a volleyball state that Kentucky is. UK is always a top 5, top 10 team. U of L's kind of in that same stratosphere. And then WKU, obviously, a top 25 team on a pretty perennial basis. But Kyle Cohen had been here just a couple years ago on staff and then moved on. Um, but now with Jenna Otek leaving and going to U of L, it presented an opportunity for him to come back, and I'm sure he wanted to be up under Coach Hudson again and learn from him and maybe further his career in the future. So definitely welcome back to the Hill, Kyle Cohan.
Uh, Tell me if you heard this before, but Sam Crenshaw broke his own program record with a pole vault of 5.17 meters.
Yeah, at this point, it's Death, Taxes, and Sam Crenshaw setting a program record in the pole vault, man. I mean, he's been doing it since last year when he was a true freshman. Now he's a sophomore, and it seems like every time we record and we talk about a track and field event, Sam Crenshaw's breaking his own record. So definitely big congrats to him. Can't wait to see what he does the rest of the season and obviously throughout his WKU career.
WKU tennis got their first victory of the season in a 6-1 tilt over Northern Kentucky University.
Yeah, the tennis team had a little bit of a rough start to the season. Of course, they played Vanderbilt and Louisville in their first 2 matches, so they kind of got roughed up a little bit. There's a lot of new names and faces, replacing a really good senior class that went out last year. Some of the all-time most winningest singles and doubles players on the WKU tennis program history graduated this last year. So nice to see them bounce back from a couple of rough matches and get a pretty decisive victory over Northern Kentucky. So way to go, tennis.
WKU softball was selected in 4th place in Conference USA preseason poll and had no all conference team selections.
I will take the 4th place preseason selection. I think there's some pretty good softball teams in this league. Liberty's been good the last couple years. Louisiana Tech has been solid. This will be their last season, I believe, in the league. So, but it's kind of crazy to me as a fourth place team to not have any all conference team members. That's a little bit disrespectful. So I can't wait for the Lady Toppers to achieve higher than that fourth place finish. I want to see him be in the top two consideration. And then we're going to put a couple players on that postseason all conference tournament team or all conference team. I can't wait for that. So definitely watch out for the softball team.
And looking at some WKU women's golf, the Lady Toppers golf Sydney Hackett enters the season at number 55 national ranking. That is the highest in Hilltopper history.
Yeah, that stat kind of blew my mind when I saw it because we've had some really good golfers come through the program, including Mary Joyner in the not so recent past. I mean, it wasn't that long ago. And then Katie Craig, who just graduated this last year, was an amazing golfer. She was always top five. Broke the program record for wins. She was a solid golfer, and for neither one of those ladies to ever be higher than number 55 just kind of blows my mind. But we saw Sydney Hackett come on strong to end last season, won the Conference USA individual title, and helped the team go to team also won the conference title. So well deserved, well earned, and hopefully it's just the beginning to a solid season for Sydney Hackett. So big congratulations to her.
And that wraps up this week's episode of Red Towel Wrap Up. But before I let you go, and before I hand it back to you, Moff, I think the Louisville volleyball job is a lateral move overall. But I hope Jenna goes up there and does great things. But Moff, back to you.
Yeah, volleyball state. What can you say? We'll get to play them and settle that one on the court. Hopefully, this upcoming year should be a fun match as always. Hopefully, we're healthy. We weren't healthy when we played them this last year, but looking forward to it for sure. And now we're going to jump into our basketball game previews this week for the Kennesaw State game and Middle Tennessee game. And the game previews are brought to you by Roof Girl. If you have a leaky roof, shingles detached, faded, or just plain blah, don't call any roof company. Call Paula with Roof Girl. Locally owned and operated with over 6 years of experience and a proud WKU alumna. She will work with your insurance company. Give Roof Girl a call today at 270-392-4768 to set up a free inspection and quote. See her work by following Roof Girl on Facebook and Instagram. And remember, you're not just calling any roofing company, you're calling Paula, a person who cares for your roof. And a good roof is a roof you can forget about. Again, call or text Roof Girl at 270-392-4768 to get started today. And now we jump into the Kennesaw State and MTSU previews. WKU enters this week's games with a record of 11-9 overall, and we now sit at 4-5 in Conference USA play after losing to Liberty and Sam Houston last week, which we discussed just a little bit ago. WKU is on the road at Kennesaw State on Wednesday at 6 p.m., and then we play at MTSU for the first game of the 100 Miles of Hate series in this basketball season. That game is on Saturday at 3 p.m. And Tyler, before we jump into these games and the players we need to know, I guess, what are your thoughts on the current state of the Hilltoppers as it stands, 11-9 overall, and now under 500 in conference play, sitting at 4-5? How are you feeling about the Hilltoppers?
Well, I still high on them. I don't feel like anyone thought at this point in the season this is where we would be. But I mean, that's how the dominoes fall. It seems like teams just really get up whenever they play us. Kennesaw State, I know we're going to talk about them in just a second, but that when they played us like the day before, their leading scorer was suspended indefinitely, and I mean they came out and played lights out. Teams have been draining the three on us. We have not been so hot from beyond the arc. I just feel like that's something we need to work on. Players need to get in the lab. Coaches need to sit down and try to find a way to connect with the players. If something's going on, I'm not something's going on. I don't think there's any internal conflict in the locker room or anything like that. But um, to me, it just don't feel like sometimes we're seeing the players give their all. And I may be reading it completely wrong. I hope I am. But I don't know. It just seems like sometimes the players maybe take a few plays off, and in college ball you can't do that. But I wouldn't think we'd be 4-5 right now, 7th in Conference USA. But with the rest of the season ahead of us, there's always ways that we can climb up out of that hole.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people saw us being where we are, and we've had some injuries. Bryant Celebonge going down earlier this season, Terrion Murdoch's being injured earlier this season. But I feel like this team and this roster was built to overcome those two guys going down. But now Armello and Teagan going down for 2-3 games potentially if they don't make it back this week. It's just a rough stretch of games, and we're on the road, which is already tough as it is. So I don't feel like it gets any easier in the immediate future for us, and I hate that because I still think that this ball team, when they're playing at their best, I still think they're one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the league. But I think we haven't seen them play at their best consistently, you know, since the Bahamas, maybe. Maybe we've seen flashes of it. Maybe we've seen a half of basketball at their best. But it's just been a while since we've seen them consistently play well. And I'm not sure if we're going to get back to that. In the immediate future, I don't think we do. We need those guys to come back and be healthy and ready to play. But these next couple games are going to be rough. But looking at Kennesaw State, they enter this game with a record of 12-8 overall, including also being 4-5 in Conference USA play. They most recently played Sam Houston and Louisiana Tech and lost both of those games, and that was after beating us, like you talked about the previous Saturday. So they kind of played out of their minds coming into that game where Simeon Cottle had just been suspended due to the betting allegations. They had that animal, trapped in the corner, wounded mentality, and they just came out and played a really good game and beat us here at Diddle. But since then, they've come back down to earth, lost a couple games. Obviously, Kennesaw and WKU are playing for the second time in 11 days since the previous matchup, where Kennesaw State won that game following the suspension of Simeon Cottle. ESPN matchup predictor gives WKU a 28.7% chance of victory, so 71.3% chance for Kennesaw to win. Of course, this game is at Kennesaw State. And this game, honestly, that winning percentage, over 28% could be high for WKU given the recent news of Teagan Moore and Armello Boone likely to miss this game, with their injuries. Armello Boone with an ankle injury and Teagan Moore with concussion symptoms and concussion protocol right now until he's cleared to play again. So, Tyler, what are your thoughts on this matchup with Kennesaw State going on the road, minus a couple guys? How are you feeling about this game?
Well, going on the road, you're right. We ain't been good on the road. We've been really bad, and you're right. I mean, we haven't been really consistent since the battle for Atlantis. And if you look at it right now, we're on the longest losing skid of the year. We got we lost 3 straight games. So I mean, this is kind of a gut check time. After the last Kennesaw State game, I was in the media room. I was listening to what Coach was saying, and he was asked about how the news of Simeon Cottle being cut think affected Kennesaw State, and he's like, a team is averaging 88 or over 90 points a game. That just means them shots are opening up for someone else. And by golly, if they didn't for number 11, the dude I think had 30 plus points on us. Dude was just unconscious. So we're gonna have to find a way to man up and really prove that we're not 7th in Conference USA. This is gut check time. We're on the back end of the conference season, and it's time to it's time to play like it. We may be down two leading scores, and that hurts. It really does. But at the end of the day, no one's going to say, well, those games don't count because those players didn't play. No, this is next man up mentality, and it's time to come play forceful and aggressive and act like we deserve to be there.
Yeah, perfect segue into the players to know for Kennesaw State because currently their leading scorer is R.J. Johnson, who you alluded to. He is number 11. He is a 6'4" sophomore guard. He's averaging 12.2 points per game, and he had 31 points in the previous matchup just 11 days ago. So he kind of just had a coming out party with Simeon Cottle unavailable and suspended. And he's a good player. He can make shots. He's solid. Their leading rebounder is Franquan Sherman. He's number 6. He's a 6'7" junior. He's averaging 8.6 rebounds per game. And then their leading passer is also R.J. Johnson. Again, versatile guard, good player, leading scorer, and leading assist man with 3.1 assists per game. And then jumping into the team graphics, just seeing how we compare side by side, you can see, like you alluded to earlier, Kennesaw State scoring almost 88 points per game, about 9, almost 10 points per game higher than Western Kentucky at 78.8. But we know that points per game has been much, much lower for WKU in conference play. I want to say it's been closer to 73, if I'm not mistaken. Points against, pretty close for both teams, 77.4 to 75.7. Kennesaw State shoots a lot better than us. They're at 45%. They're middle of the pack Conference USA. We're one of the lowest teams in Conference USA. I think we're second lowest and one of the bottom 20 in all of America and all of NCAA at 41%. Rebounds, they do out rebound us 44 to 41. Assists, they beat us there 15 to almost 13. Blocks 5.7 to 2.8. And then steals 7.3 to 7.8, pretty much a wash there. So, on paper, you can't say, well, Kennesaw doesn't have Simeon Cottle because we saw what happened on the road against them last time. And now this time we don't have Teagan and Armello Boone going to their place for the rematch. So, Tyler, what are your thoughts on Kennesaw State and getting this rematch in just 11 days since we played them the first time, and just how this game looks on paper?
I'm not a fan of playing teams kind of back to back. I like to have a little bit more space in between the games, but I mean that's not how the schedule is. Since we are shooting 41% from the field, our defense has got to be key. I mean that's something that we need to be able to hang our hats on, and especially with the team shooting as hot as Kennesaw State is right now, or at least getting as many points as Kennesaw State is, we're you know we're going to have to be better on the defensive end. Johnson, really, whenever he was at Diddle, he could do whatever he wanted to. Now, granted, boy's kind of built. So that's when we're gonna have to get physical with him and make him kind of lower that shoulder, maybe get some charges called against him. He gets some fouls against him. He could change the way he plays a little bit. But we are just gonna have to be better at rebounding. We're gonna have to force some turnovers. We're going to have to make them turn the ball over. And hopefully get up in them, make them miss shots. We get the rebounds, get them and go. Because I don't want to slow the game down against them, because I feel like that's the way, sometimes in the chaos, that's when we play our best. And if you slow it down, I feel like that's when we turn the ball over, make dumb passes, or just get too late in the shot clock and have to jack up a very ill-advised shot. So, I feel like this game, our defense is going to have to be key, and I feel like this is going to be a good test for it, especially if our two, Boone and Moore's both out. Someone's going to have to step up, whether that be Murdix, whether that be Newell, Hackman. Somebody's going to have to do it. So, I mean, this is the game.
Yep. Now looking forward to the MTSU game this Saturday. MTSU enters this week with a record of 11-8 overall, including being 5-3 in Conference USA play. Most recently, they played Missouri State and beat them in double overtime. And then they played Jacksonville State on Friday and lost to them. The ESPN matchup predictor gives WKU a 33.4% chance. Again, just not very good odds. 66.6 going to MTSU to win that ball game. Not what you like to see or hear for a rivalry game. On the road again at the Glass House, the terrible arena, which I hate. They're not going to have the bleachers pulled out, the indoor track. I have a good time going to Murfreesboro because I like going to Toots, as you well know, Tyler. We went before pregame and postgame just a year or two ago, whenever it was. But what are your thoughts on this MTSU matchup and being probably a pretty big underdog? It looks like on paper.
Let's think about rivalry games. I mean, you can kind of like in football, you can throw the records and you can throw all the stats out the windows. Because typically in these games, someone's going to step up that you're not expecting, and they're going to make a big impact on the game. Whenever we was playing Liberty, I said it before, kind of like Leroy came in, got a big defensive play, and that he just kind of seemed to spark the team on. And granted, if we hadn't dug ourselves in a 13 or 19 point hole, we could have easily came back, and that could have been the turning point of that game. So against MTSU, they play Liberty on the 29th. Hopefully Cleveland, maybe Cleveland causes one of their players having a concussion. He seems to be good at that. I'm not hoping no ill will on anybody, but it could happen. And maybe it's one of their leading scores. I'm just saying. But this one, this one's going to be another battle. I mean, MTSU, they seem like they're a good team. They're second, or they're tied for they're third in Conference USA. But I mean, they're only 3.5 games behind first place. We're 5 games. So I mean, this one's going to be another gut check. Do you want to go down there and get embarrassed by MTSU? No, nobody wants to, especially not us. If we don't play up to it, it could very well happen.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to get to make the trip this year due to a volleyball conflict. We have a tournament in Madisonville, so unless I get an excuse to not go to that game or to that tournament, I won't be going to this matchup in MTSU, which is very rare for me not to make that trip down to MTSU for basketball or football. So, but now we're going to look at the players to know for MTSU. And as always, if you are watching on the YouTube video version, I do have those players to know pulled up for both teams. Now, obviously, the left side being WKU, Teagan, and Armello doesn't quite play here because not sure either of those guys are going to play. But the guys on the right hand side are all going to be playing. And it starts with their leading scorer being Kamari Lands. He is number 22. He's a 6'8", 230-pound senior guard. He's averaging 13.2 points per game. You can see his shooting percentages there, 40.5% from the field and 79.5% from the free throw line. Their leading rebounder is Torrey Alston. He is number 10. He is a 6'9", 220-pound sophomore, averaging 7.5 rebounds per game to go along with 11.8 points per game. And you can see his rebound breakdown, 5.4 defensive, 2.1 offensive. And then their leading passer is Javin Carter. He is number 2 on the roster, a 6'3", 195-pound sophomore. He's averaging 3.7 assists per game to go along with 11.7 points per game. And you can see he's only averaging 1.6 turnovers per game. And he's playing 27.8 minutes per game. So then looking at their team stats, how we compare with them. just side by side. We're scoring more points per game than them overall for the season. Even though, like I mentioned earlier, that number skewed for us has been considerably lower in conference play. Points against, we're giving up almost 76. They're at 70. They shoot better than us. That's not surprising. I think only Louisiana Tech in conference shoots worse than us. Rebounds, we do have a pretty considerable margin over them, but that will be very dependent on if Armella Boone is playing, because he has stepped up and been that guy. Assists per game, close there, 13 to 14.3, and then blocks 2.8 to 4.8 in MTSU's favor. And steals, we have an advantage there, 7.8 to 6.3. Again, Tyler, the stats side by side, a lot of this favors MTSU. What are your thoughts on how these teams match up on paper?
I mean, they obviously have a little bit better defense than what we have been fielding. 70 points against for them, 75 for us. So, we're obviously going to have to come out and play good D, and we're going to have to make our shots. We can't be having empty possessions. We can't be turning the ball over. Um, and, it's wild that we're one of the worst field goal percentage shooting teams in the conference. If and as you said, in the lower part of the conference basketball world, we're going to have to start hitting our shots. Uh, and with the blocks, both teams were playing had out block us for and I kind of thought this year we'd have a more dominant big man. Now, granted, with Bryant going out, it does kind of affect you. But I mean, you got Boyd there who's 7 foot. You got Leroy, you got Blaze. Both of them are capable of coming in, and I wish they was a little bit more better rim protector. Um, Maybe they'll finally kind of step up to the plate and prove that they can do it and that they want to. But we're obviously going to need them to play and play good and play hard. Um, Kamari Lands, he is. I was looking at splits while he was talking. At home, yes, he's like a 36.2%, or I think away he's shooting like 40% from the threes. At home, he's only shooting 32.3%. So that kind of favors us a little bit. Hopefully, he don't decide to get hot and just go out and shoot unconscious. But I feel like this being a rivalry game, you better watch the refs, because last time we were down there was some fishy stuff going going around. There should have been some tees that got thrown. They weren't. So just seems like something transaction, some transaction happened there. But in all seriousness, I hope we can. I think we can win the game. We're just going to come out. We're going to play hard, and we're going to have to win it. Rebounds. All that is that's want to just come out. You say, and granted, Armello Boone can jump at the gym. He's a great rebounder. We have other people who can also rebound. You just got to want it. It's effort. So hopefully the rest of the team kind of gets that want to, and can get every missed shot that goes off the rim. But it's going to be a tough one. Going to be a very, very tough one, especially with possibly more and Boone being out.
Yeah, I remembered a stat earlier to emphasize and highlight our field goal percentage struggles. And as a team, from shooting the three, we're actually a pretty average team. We're almost middle of the NCAA. We're somewhere lower 200s, like 212, 210, something like that. Out of 364, 68 teams, whatever it is now. So a little lower than middle of the pack, but average and much improved from where we were last year. But our 2-point percentage on field goals is just one of the worst in the nation. And versus Sam Houston, there was 1 point during the game. We are 1 for 11 on 2-point shots. And a lot of those were within 5 feet right at the rim, point blank shots that we just couldn't convert. And when you're 1 out of 11, shooting 9%, 9.1%, whatever that is, that's not good. That's not going to win you a lot of ball games. That's going to, shoot yourself in the foot repeatedly. So, again, yeah, that has to be, a focus going forward is, Are we taking tough 2-point shots? Do we need to find better shot selection, more ball movement, whatever it is? But we've got to do something, especially with our two leading scorers down. And I think that's a perfect segue into our keys to victory. Tyler, what do you have for your first key to victory for this coming week versus Kennesaw State and Middle Tennessee?
I'm going to start off saying better, smarter defense. I don't know how many times whenever we were watching the Kennesaw State game or the Liberty game, it just seems like whenever the a big man sets a ball screen for the point guard, they team switches defenders, and then next thing you know, you got point guard on a well, I know against Liberty that's the way it was. You had a small man on Cleveland, and then whenever we was at the Kennesaw State game, they would just do a little pick and roll, easy pick and roll, and I don't know how many points the center had from that pick and roll, but it was way too many. So definitely, I'm gonna say better defense.
I think my first key to victory is going to be centered around 3-point shooting. I think we're going to have a really good road trip of shooting to three, and I say that because your two most opportunistic guys in Armello and Teagan, guys that like to drive to the rack, drive to the hole and get points in the paint or get, fouled contact and make a tough basket or go to the free throw line. When those two guys are out, your next two guys are what, Terrion and LJ to drive to the hole, and those aren't guys that are doing that a ton. So I think, as we've seen this season, we're probably going to lean a little bit heavier on the 3-point shot. And if we're not making them, it could be a long week. So hopefully we're taking and making good 3-point shots. Tyler, what's your second key to victory?
Mine's gonna be better shot selection. Uh, I, it was a Kennesaw State game, and I seen it against Liberty. There was a few ill-advised 3-point shots. And then against in the Kennesaw State game at Diddle, we also missed a bunch of like little layups, put back dunks, put back layups, just easy shots that you should be making. We were bricking them. And I think if we want to come out with a W in either one of these games, we're going to have to make those easy shots or make better discernments in the 3-point shooting that we take.
Yeah, I think my second key to victory is going to be taking care of the ball. We saw during the Sam Houston game, that first game without Teagan and Armello, we had almost as many turnovers in the first half as we averaged for an entire ball game for this season. That's very uncharacteristic for us. It's not something I expected to happen. We got Terry on out there usually handling the ball. Now our other two ball handlers were out. Obviously, Teagan and Armello are kind of those second and third options. Otherwise, we're leaning on LJ or Ryan Myers to bring the ball up if it's not Terry on. But we have to take care of the ball. You can't have empty possessions. You can't have live ball turnovers that go the other way for quick points off a turnover. So definitely take care of the ball for my second key to victory. Tyler, what is your third key to victory?
Got to come out with that spark. Um, someone has to be the spark, man. If we're down, someone has got to be able to come out, make big defensive plays or a big offensive play and get the team hype, get the team ready to play. Uh, Hopefully before we get down, 15-2 or 17-1, someone's got to come out and get the team fired up if they come out flat footed.
Yeah, I think my third key to victory is a very similar, and I was going to say have a better start to the ball game. We've seen multiple games where we've been behind double digits by the first or second media timeout, where we just start too slow, we dig ourselves a big hole, and then we try to catch up. We switch things up. We play a zone defense, 3/4 court, full court defense, and try to change the flow and momentum of the game. Some shots start going in. We claw our way back. But that's not necessary if you have a good start to the game and you don't shoot yourself in the foot and get behind 10 plus points early. So I'd like to see us come out with a little bit more energy, a little bit more effort, and just have a better start to the ball game. Now, this one, I feel like it's going to be a trick or a tough question, not a trick question, but Tyler, who's going to be your MVP for this week's game versus Kennesaw and Middle Tennessee?
Dang. I kind of flirted with you off the, or not flirted with you, but flirted the idea of who I was going to pick before, because I mean I mentioned him a few times in this podcast already, and that was going to be Leroy Odehigh, but I think I'm going to go with Grant Newell. He can get rebounds, he can shoot the three, he can get points in the paint. He's kind of that jack of all trades. I ain't seen him carry the ball, get the ball up the floor too much, but I'm sure he could do that if you absolutely needed him to. But I'm gonna go Grant Newell for my MVP for this week's games.
Yeah, I'm torn on who my MVP is going to be because part of me wants to go with LJ Hackman. I think he was our leading scorer versus Sam Houston, if I'm not mistaken. But I'm going to actually pull a different name out of the hat. I'm going to go with someone that kind of leans into my first key to victory, which was 3-point shooting. I think we're going to have a good shooting week to be in these games. I'm going to go with Ryan Myers. Give me Ryan Myers, the Brooklyn kid, the New York boy. I think if he has a good shooting night, he can shoot us into a ball game real quick. Now, he might help shoot us out of a ball game too if he has a bad couple of games. But I think Ryan Myers, at times, has been a really streaky shooter, and when he gets hot, he's hot. Them shots start going in, that basket gets big for him. So, give me Ryan Myers. I hope he has a couple good games versus Kennesaw Middle Tennessee and helps us have what would be some upset victories on the road. All right, Tyler, jump in and give me your score predictions for both games, Kennesaw State and Middle Tennessee. Who you got and who you got winning?
All right, so I was saying I couldn't put WKU lose both games this week. I think both these games are winnable. Both these games are going to be very very hard fought. I think Hank will get the team turned around, because I think Hank understands what this looks like, and I'm sure he wants to win too. He wants to win just as bad as anyone else, and I feel like Hank is a good enough coach that he can. So I put Western winning both of them. Western beats Kennesaw State 73-68. Feel like they coach gets their defense on point. And then you turn right around and play MTSU, and WKU wins at MTSU at the Glass House, or the Crap House, whichever one you want to say, 76-71.
Ooh, I couldn't wear those red glasses and have us winning. I wanted to. I wish I could, but just unfortunately, um, I see this being a rough week for us and a couple losses heading our way, especially missing potentially two of our leading scores for both of these games. Definitely out for Kennesaw. He said our coach Plona in his media availability today said Armello might be back for the Saturday game. Kind of alluded to Teagan probably wouldn't be back for either one of these games. So the Kennesaw State game, we know they score a lot of points. We saw what they did in Diddle. I have them winning 84-68. So a pretty convincing victory. Don't know what that line's going to open up. I wouldn't be surprised if it's 7.5, 8.5 to Kennesaw's favor. And then the MTSU game, like you said, rivalry game. Sometimes you have to throw the external factors out, and it's going to be a tough drag them out, knock them down, fight kind of game. I still have MTSU coming out victorious in that game, 74-64. So unfortunately, a couple road losses to go on top of the losing streak that we're on now, and man, the boo birds and the pitchforks are going to come out for Coach Plona, man. It's just been a rough middle of the season as we're in the middle of conference play now, and this little losing streak and the injuries piled on top of it are just not going to make life any easier. And I think it's going to be a rough road trip, and we're going to be ready to get back home the week after, back into Diddle, hopefully with our two big guys, our two leading scorers back on the court and ready to play and healthy. But we've got to get through this week, and it's going to be tough. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope we are talking about a couple games next week, and I'm saying, hey guys, we went on the road and won some tough ball games without a couple of our leading scores. I hope that happens, but it's going to be tough. But I'm looking forward to watching the games. Again, like I said, I don't think I'm going to the MTSU game this year, but should be fun. Rivalry games are always great. That atmosphere is always pretty good at MTSU. I'll give them a little bit of credit. The people that do show up tend to be loud. So looking forward to that, and just all the other sports going on, and just continuing to you know, cheer on these hilltoppers. Even in the tough times. Maybe that's when our this team needs our support more than when we're just winning games and everything is fun and easy. I think in the tough times, that's when this team really needs you to stand up and get loud and wave that red towel for them. The tough times show that adversity and how you respond to that adversity. And injuries are just part of that, and we're dealing with that now. We dealt with it last year, big time. But we've got to come through. Nobody's going to feel sorry for us. There's not going to be any asterisks like you mentioned earlier because someone didn't play or wasn't available in a ball game. They're going to come out and give us their best effort and try to take us to the woodshed. So let's hopefully prevent that from happening in a couple tough road matches, and hopefully talk about some victories next week. Tyler, hit us with your final words and then take us on out of here.
Yeah, so I was looking up at the La Tech versus Kennesaw State game, and R.J. Johnson, he at our place he had 30 something points. At Sam Houston, which Kennesaw State lost Sam Houston 93-87. He R.J. Johnson had 32 points, but you turn right around, La Tech beat them this last game. He only had 1 point. So we just need to watch watch the tape on that La Tech game and see what they did to R.J. Johnson to slow him down or to basically shut him down. And then try to replicate that because, I mean, well, heck, you cut the head off that snake, another one, two more grow back. So, but yeah, this is the time of the year when adversities hit teams. You've been playing a lot of games, injuries happen, teams go through ups and downs, ebb and flows. And yeah, it just it's got to feel better whenever you are having a downtime when the fans are behind you. You got the community cheering for you, not calling for the coach's head. I know some people are like that. I'm not currently like that. I still have faith in Coach Hank. I like what Coach has done. Has he had a perfect tenure here at Western so far? No. But I don't think any coach has. But it's still it's a little too early to be yelling for his head. Um, Conference USA as a basketball conference, I think has gotten better through the years. And I mean, you're just one, and we're playing against better teams. Granted, if this was a Sun Belt, Sun Belt's kind of I feel like in basketball, definitely football, but in basketball, they're mid. I guess the young people would say, but uh, I just feel like give the coach more time. Don't be going on social media yelling for his head, just Twitter fingering, fire coach, fire Hank. We gotta get rid of him, because really, dude, it's been a season and a half. I mean, gosh. Uh, let's give him some time to and see what he can do. But I feel like this team can be great. Granted, having two key injuries doesn't help us, but we have other players who can step up and who can play great offensively and defensively. We have shooters. We got people who can get into the paint and score and get fouled and one. We got people who can block shots. We got people who can do everything. I'm not going to give up on the team, um, because I don't know. I guess I'm built different. But uh, with that said, Moff, who has it better than us?
Nobody, buddy. You know it.
Y'all go Tops.
Go Tops. Later, guys.
See y'all.